Do I have to choose between being her mother and letting her become extraordinary? Grace Miller's voice cracked as the question slipped from her lips, raw, terrified, and too honest to take back. She wasn't talking to anyone in particular. Not to Michael, not to Lily, not even to herself. She was talking to the silence that filled their tiny apartment each night after her daughter fell asleep, clutching a chess book instead of a teddy bear. It wasn't just about talent anymore. It was about the distance, the growing space between a mother who scrubbed office floors at dawn and a child who spoke the language of strategy and brilliance like she was born into it. Grace stood at the edge of something she couldn't name: pride tangled with fear, love twisted with sacrifice. And tonight she would have to decide which part of herself to listen to. But what she didn't know was that one letter written in a child's crooked handwriting would soon bring someone back into their lives and turn everything upside down. Stay with us, because what happens next will shatter expectations and heal more than one heart. Grace Miller had scrubbed the glass walls of Reed Tech's executive conference room so many times she could do it blindfolded. No one ever noticed her, which was how she preferred it. Being invisible meant no one asked questions about her daughter waiting quietly in the hallway, about the long shifts, or why a woman with eyes full of books worked with hands raw from bleach. But today was different. It was teacher planning day at Lily's public elementary school in Queensbridge. Grace had no choice but to bring her daughter with her to the early morning cleaning shift at the towering Reed Tech headquarters in downtown New York. At just 7 years old, Lily was sharp as a tack and quiet as a whisper. She sat in a corner of the corridor sketching geometric shapes in her notebook with eerie precision, her curls falling across her face a world away. "Almost done, sweetheart," Grace murmured, holding a spray bottle in one hand and a microfiber cloth in the other. "Just Mr. Reed's office left. Remember, don't touch anything." Lily nodded without lifting her eyes from the page. Grace opened the door to the CEO's corner office, a sleek space of polished wood chrome edges and a panoramic view of New York's skyline. It was the kind of office that didn't just say power, it whispered it like a well-kept secret. While Grace got to work scrubbing fingerprints off the glass desk, Lily wandered closer to a wooden side table. Resting on it beneath a beam of morning sun was an old chessboard with carved walnut and ivory pieces frozen mid-game. She didn't touch it, but her eyes narrowed. Her small hands hovered in the air, forming invisible moves. Her lips moved in silence. Something in the symmetry, the war between black and white, clicked in her brain, like puzzle pieces snapping together. The office door creaked open. "I forgot my Michael Reed." The 32-year-old CEO stopped mid-sentence. His gaze landed not on his forgotten briefcase, but on the child inspecting his chessboard, like a miniature grandmaster mid-tournament. Grace spun around, horror rising to her face. "Mr. Reed, I'm so sorry. My daughter's school's closed. I'll get her out of here." But Michael lifted a hand, silencing her without a word. His eyes never left Lily. "Do you play?" he asked gently. Lily glanced up at him. "No. Then what were you doing?" She pointed, hesitant. The white queen's exposed. If the black knight moves to f3, it forks the queen and the rook. Michael blinked. He turned to the board. She was right. Grace looked like she might collapse. She's never played. She just notices things. Has she seen this board before? "No, sir. We don't have a chess set at home. I barely make rent, let alone toys." Michael knelt beside Lily. "How did you know that move?" "The knight moves in an L shape," she replied matter-of-factly. "If it goes there, it threatens two pieces." Michael Reed had played chess since he was 6. He'd studied opening theory endgames, classic Soviet strategies. But no book could prepare him for this instinct in a child who had never touched a chess piece. "Would you like to learn?" he asked softly. Lily's eyes lit up with an intensity that caught him off guard. Not excitement, hunger. From the doorway, Grace took a nervous step forward. "Sir, we don't want to impose." "It's no imposition," Michael said firmly. "It's the first time I've been genuinely surprised in a long time." The city bustled below them, unaware that in a corner office 50 stories above a single sentence had just changed 3 lives forever. The following Tuesday, Grace returned with Lily after school. To her shock, Michael had arranged everything: HR approval, visitor security badge, even blocked time in his own schedule. "Are you sure about this?" Grace asked as he set up the board. "I'm very sure," he said. "And please call me Michael." Grace hesitated, then reluctantly stepped out. For the next hour, Lily absorbed every rule, every tactic like a dry sponge meeting water. She asked precise, unnerving questions about control of the center and tempo. By the third session, she wasn't just playing, she was thinking like a player, on instinct. One evening, Grace arrived early to find Michael laughing as Lily pranced her fingers across the board like a trotting horse. "That's how my grandfather taught me to remember the knight's movement," he explained. Lily announced knight to f7. "Checkmate." Michael froze. "Wait, what?" He looked at the board. She had beaten him. She didn't even smile. "Has she had any instruction?" "At all?" he asked, stunned. "No," Grace said. "We don't even own a set. She practices on paper pieces she cuts herself." That night, Grace searched online child chess, Prodigy, gifted signs tournaments, New York. The tuition fees made her sick to her stomach. Across town, Michael called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "Daniel, it's Michael Reed. You once told me you wanted to coach the next Bobby Fischer. I think I found something more rare." But Grace didn't know any of that yet. All she knew was that Lily had found something that made her glow from the inside out. And Grace, for all her pride, was starting to wonder how far she was willing to go and what she was willing to give up to let her daughter shine. The next morning, as Grace entered the janitor's lounge, she found a note from the floor supervisor taped to her locker. "Your daughter is not allowed in executive offices during work hours. Further incidents may result in disciplinary action." She crumpled the note in her hand, heart racing. Would she risk the only job keeping food on their table? Would she let that risk steal something Lily might have been born to do? Before we continue this emotional journey, may I ask, would you take a risk if it meant changing your child's life forever? If this story touched your heart even a little, please tap like and send us a heart to show your support. Grace Miller couldn't sleep. For the third night in a row, she sat at their tiny kitchen table in Queensbridge, staring at the paper chess set Lily had made by hand, cut squares taped together, pawns scribbled in pencil, kings and queens colored with crayon. It looked like a child's game, but it wasn't. It was a map to somewhere Lily didn't even realize she was headed. And Grace wasn't sure she could follow. Michael Reed had kept his word. He arranged for Lily to meet Daniel Carter, a retired grandmaster who had once coached Olympians. The man was famously blunt. He didn't believe in polite encouragement or potential. But after watching Lily play 3 matches without blinking, Daniel had looked at Michael and said, "She's not potential. She's lightning caught in a bottle." By the end of the week, Lily had her own real chess set hand-delivered by Michael. He'd also bought her books, a digital clock, a child-sized study chair for their cramped apartment. Grace had resisted every gift, but it was hard to say no when Lily spent every night reading openings under the covers with a flashlight. Still, something inside Grace began to ache. Every Thursday now, they traveled to Michael's office for lessons. Every Friday, Lily stayed late for practice games with Daniel. Her laughter was brighter, her eyes sharper. She walked with a kind of purpose that Grace hadn't seen before. But Grace couldn't shake the feeling that the life her daughter was stepping into was getting further and further from the one they'd come from. That feeling turned to dread when Lily handed her an invitation one afternoon. "It's for Sophia's birthday party," she said, almost afraid. "Saturday. But I have practice with Coach Daniel." Grace froze. It was the first time Lily had been invited to something normal. A party, balloons, cake, other kids. "You don't have to choose," Grace said gently. "We'll reschedule." But he said we're reviewing endgames that day. Grace knelt. "And I say you're going to a party." That night, as Lily slept, Grace stood at the window watching lights flicker across the housing blocks. Her chest was tight. Pride and fear had become indistinguishable. For the first time in her life, she didn't know which part of herself to listen to: the mother who wanted more for her daughter, or the woman who knew what this world could do to girls who rose too fast. The very next week, the world tried to push Lily down. At her first open tournament in New Jersey, Lily swept her first 3 games against older, more experienced players. She didn't smile. She didn't fidget. She played like someone twice her age. Word began to spread. A janitor's daughter, playing like that. Then came the 4th match. Her opponent, a boy with a famous coach, stared at her like she was a puzzle that didn't fit. Halfway through the game, he got up and whispered something to the tournament director. Minutes later, Grace was pulled aside. "Your daughter's being accused of cheating," the man said flatly. Grace went cold. She has no coach of record, no rating, and she's beating seeded players with perfect technique. "She's just smart," Grace said through clenched teeth. "She practices, she works." The man gave a shrug. "The coach says her moves match a computer's analysis exactly. It's suspicious." Grace's voice rose. "She's 7. She doesn't even own a laptop." The commotion caught Michael's attention. He marched over, asked for specifics, and when they hesitated, he raised his voice, not as CEO, but as someone personally outraged. "Are you seriously accusing this child without evidence?" he snapped. "Because she doesn't fit your idea of what talent looks like." The accusation was dropped within the hour, but something inside Lily broke that day. When Grace found her sitting in the hallway afterward, clutching her pawn like a lifeline, she looked up and whispered, "Why would they think I cheated?" Grace crouched beside her, heart shattering. "Because people get scared when someone like you walks into their world and turns it upside down." "They don't like that I don't belong," Lily said. "You do belong," Grace whispered. "You belong anywhere your mind takes you." Michael stayed until they got home that night, said nothing, just sat at their small kitchen table while Lily reset the board and played quietly with herself. After she went to bed, Grace poured herself tea with shaking hands. "She's changing," she murmured, "becoming someone I don't always understand." Michael didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "That's what happens when someone finds their purpose." "Is this her purpose?" Grace asked, "or yours?" That question hung between them, heavy and painful. Then came the scholarship offer. St. James Preparatory School, one of New York's most elite institutions, with a full ride, chess program included. Grace almost didn't go to the tour. She showed up in her best thrift store blouse and walked the marble halls like an intruder. Lily wore her cleanest sneakers and held her mother's hand too tightly. The moment Grace saw the gold-plated alumni wall and the private dormitories, her chest closed in. They didn't belong here. They couldn't belong here. At the end of the visit, Lily was asked to solve 3 tactical puzzles in front of the coach. She solved all of them in under a minute. "Impressive," the coach muttered. Grace smiled, but her eyes burned. Later that night, she stared at the enrollment form unsigned. Michael called. "Don't say no because it scares you," he said gently. "Say no if it's not right, but don't let fear choose for her." Grace didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was raw. "If I say yes, I might lose her." "No," Michael said. "You might finally let her fly. Thank you for staying with us through this emotional part of the story. Let me ask you something from the heart. Would you let your child chase greatness, even if it meant growing apart from you? If this part moved you, please hit like and send us a heart to support the story." When the acceptance letter from St. James Preparatory School arrived, Grace Miller didn't cry right away. She just stood there in the hallway of their small Queensbridge apartment, the envelope trembling in her hand, her daughter watching her with wide, anxious eyes. "Did I get in?" Lily asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Grace looked at her, really looked at her. Not as a child, not as a responsibility, but as a soul already beginning to outgrow the walls around her. "You did," Grace said quietly. "Full scholarship." Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, and for a moment Grace just held her daughter, not to keep her close, but to memorize her before the world began calling her away. That fall, their world shifted. Mornings became structured, afternoons packed with training, and evenings filled with homework far beyond Lily's age group. But she adapted. She always adapted. And Michael, he never left. Not really, he called often. Asked about Lily's tournaments. Sent articles, resources, even a tournament chess set hand-carved in Prague. He didn't push, didn't overstep, but his presence lingered like a steady shadow behind their lives. Until the night Lily came home from school with a trembling voice and a question that broke something open. "Mom," she asked, setting down her backpack, "why don't we see Mr. Michael anymore?" Grace froze. He used to come to everything. Now he just disappears. Grace sat beside her daughter, unsure how to explain adult decisions made from fear. She had stepped away to protect them both from dependency, from expectations, from feelings she wasn't ready to face. He gave us so much, Lily whispered, and I never even said thank you properly. The next morning, Lily did something no one expected. She mailed him a handwritten letter. It was only 5 lines long, written in crooked cursive, sealed in an envelope, with a drawing of a knight and queen. Dear Mr. Michael, thank you for teaching me what a knight does, and for not being afraid of how my brain works. I hope you're okay. I miss you. Love, Lily. 3 days later, Michael Reed showed up at the Brooklyn Community Center unannounced, just in time to see Lily win a match against a regional champion and beam with the kind of joy that had faded in recent months. After the game, she saw him, and she ran into his arms. That night, Grace invited him to dinner. No boardrooms, no tension. Just 3 plates on a small table, and the comfort of a familiar voice filling the silence again. Over the following weeks, the rhythm returned. Michael and Daniel resumed training Lily together. Grace no longer stood in the background. She joined the conversations, asked questions, even started understanding the language of chess. One evening, while reviewing a complicated match on a board in their living room, Lily asked a question that stilled the room. Do you think I could ever be a teacher someday? Daniel looked up. A teacher? Yeah, like Coach Daniel. Or Mr. Michael. I want to help other kids feel the way chess makes me feel. Michael smiled slowly. Then that's exactly what you'll do. 6 months later, the Chess for All Foundation launched its first free program in Brooklyn, created and funded by Michael, run with Daniel's help, and taught weekly by one very determined 10-year-old named Lily Miller. They gave out used boards, taught children from public school shelters and foster homes. And Lily, she lit up in every session, not just because she won games, but because she helped others understand and believe. The final piece of their story fell quietly into place one rainy evening when Grace and Michael stood side by side, watching Lily explain a discovered check to a group of wide-eyed kids. She looks so much like you when she talks, Michael said softly. Grace laughed under her breath, only smarter. Michael turned to her. You know, I've spent my life chasing measurable things, goals, profits, outcomes, but nothing has made me feel like this, like helping her become who she already was meant to be. Grace looked up at him. You didn't just help her. You changed me too. He reached for her hand slowly, like offering a draw in the middle of a tense match. Maybe it's time we stop playing separate games. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked across the room at Lily, laughing alive, confident, and realized she no longer felt behind her daughter. She was walking with her now. Okay, Grace whispered. Let's play it together. Months passed. Tournaments came and went. Lily won some, lost others, but the joy stayed. So did the foundation, and so did Michael. One Sunday evening, as they walked home in the fading light, Lily skipped ahead, twirling her chess bag like a baton. Grace turned to Michael. She used to be so serious. She still is. He smiled. But now she lets herself be happy too. Grace nodded. So do I. As they approached the front door of their new townhouse, a place paid for, not with charity, but with a life they'd all built together, Lily turned back to them. Mom, she called. Mr. Michael, can we order pizza tonight? Michael grinned. Only if you don't call me Mr. anymore. Lily tilted her head. Then what should I call you? Grace met Michael's eyes. No fear this time. No doubt. Just love. That, she said, is something we'll figure out together. The door closed behind them, warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. And inside, a game began, not one of pawns and kings, but of family second chances and love redefined. Not every victory ends with a trophy. Some end with a child's laughter and the quiet, unshakable certainty that you made the right move. Now that you've seen where their journey led, let us ask you, do you think Grace made the right choice, stepping away, then stepping back in? Should Lily continue competing or focus more on teaching and inspiring others? How did this story make you feel? If you enjoyed it, comment number 3 below. Comment 1 if you're not fully satisfied, or 2 if it was just okay. We'd love to know which country you're watching from. Share in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and send us a heart to show your support.